the best of money matters. Under the radar.
You're listening to Money FM 89.3, and it's now time for Under the Radar with me, Chua Tian Tian. Now, cleaning barnacles and algae off the hulls of some of the world's largest liners, that's the work of our guest for today. Founded in 2018, Neptune Robotics is a pioneer in AI-powered robotics and uses robots to reduce biofouling. That's an accumulation of microorganisms, algae, plants, and animals on ship hulls. Now, for context, removing biofouling and hull cleaning is important for the maritime industry because it helps ships reduce drag and consequently reduce fuel consumption. Biofouling could also result in the transfer of invasive aquatic species to different parts of the world as the vessel travels, which is what we do not want to see. Now, the process can be done by traditional divers, but in the case of Neptune Robotics, the firm is able to use its proprietary robots called Magneto to do so. Now, the firm is also said to have raised the industry standard by countering currents of 1 knot to 4 knots to allow for 24-hour cleaning a day in anchorages instead of the 4 hours per day of traditional cleaning by divers. Now, Neptune Robotics started commercial operations in 2020 and has seen its cleaning services expanded to 60 ports in Asia and also endorsed by some of the world's largest liners, ship owners, and operators. It also reportedly received $17.25 million in Series A investments in 2022 and is currently backed by Sequoia China, the venture capital giant behind your Apple, WhatsApp, and Shein. But why are we speaking to Neptune Robotics, you might ask? Well, the firm had in November last year expanded to Singapore, bringing its service coverage to over 55% of the international merchant vessel stops. The expansion in Singapore would also allow the firm to support ship owners and operators along China-Singapore shipping routes. But really, how important is Singapore as a market for the company? And also, what are the longer-term opportunities for the firm as the maritime industry seeks to address the issue of biofouling to push ahead on their decarbonization agenda? Lots of questions, as you can imagine, and joining me right here in the studio is Elizabeth Chan, co-founder and CEO of Neptune Robotics. Elizabeth, welcome.
Thank you very much, Tian Tian, and it's a pleasure to be here.
I heard you flew all the way in from Hong Kong.
Yes, so we arrived at 1 a.m. last night.
Wow, welcome to Singapore. And Elizabeth, we've briefly talked about Neptune Robotics as an AI-powered robotics firm that uses robots to reduce biofouling on ships. But first things first, how big is the biofouling problem in the maritime industry? How is cleaning done traditionally by divers? Thereafter, how would you describe Neptune Robotics' value proposition and business model?
So the biofouling problem is, globally, every single ocean-going vessel would like to save fuel because we want to go to net zero in 20 years. And around $76 billion every year is wasted on biofouling. So when biofouling is here, the resistance increases when the vessel sails. And, we as normal people won't be able to imagine. That's such a huge amount of money in US dollars. 76 billion is wasted every year. And we are solving this problem.
Mm-hmm. So we wouldn't realize that to a layman, seashells on the ships would cost that much money. But how would you then describe your value proposition and your business model?
So we are a advanced technology company, and we're using robotic hull inspection and hull cleaning to save fuel for the vessels as a service. Okay. So we're different from a lot of the others. We do not sell robots. We sell services. We sell the result. The result is immediately after the clean, from the second that the vessel starts sailing.
Okay, so you're like a car wash operator, but for ship house. So you own the entire infrastructure, the cleaning robots and everything.
Yes, and the team, the coverage, we deliver the result. Yes.
Okay, and it's on a per service model or is on a monthly contract model?
We do both ways because we cover 60 ports in Asia now. And most of our clients, they really call many ports because they are a global fleet. and it's like today they call this port, the next day that port, and coverage is extremely important. So they do not want to manage 1,000 vendors, right?
Yeah.
They want to manage key vendors and to service a high percentage of their port calls.
Okay, so it's more of a contract model.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about industry positioning, Elizabeth. How would you describe Neptune Robotics' positioning against your traditional house cleaning providers? I was looking at the internet. I think we have a player called DM Group Services here in Singapore. We have some other robots and part players like Norway's EcoSubsea. What would you say is your competitive advantage against these players? I know you mentioned 3 of them. Work above or clean above the waterline, work in ports with currents, and to work in muddy water. Tell us more.
Okay, so the difference between us and the others are the first thing is speed, because we counter very strong current, and we call it extreme environments, but actually the ocean is extreme environments because the ocean is not a swimming pool. So the speed part is we deliver full cleans of any vessel size and any type within 24 hours, and what that translates to is Singapore as the biggest bunkering port in the world. Usually you have 1 day. And if you cannot complete the clean in 1 day, your clients will have to pay for the extra charge, anchorage port charges. And it's almost impossible to guarantee a 1 day clean. And that's what we're doing at any locations at the anchorage. The second point is countering currents 4 times of a diver or our competitors. And the eastern anchorages in Singapore, I just learned 2 months ago, the eastern anchorages in Singapore have very strong currents. Usually the average is 3 to 4 knots.
Okay.
And what that means is for divers, for other robots, they're half or 3/4 of the time you cannot operate. But for us, because we counter very strong current, we counter 4 knots, we are able to operate 24/7 in those anchorages, and those are the anchorages for the largest vessels. So for the Cape-sized bulk carriers, for the largest tankers, etc. And this is, the second key advantage. The third is, as mentioned, above waterline. Around 30% of vessels, when they come to Singapore, they're in what we call ballast conditions. So they're not full. They're like half full or half
because
empty.
Because you offload the goods.
Yes.
Okay.
And so half of the biofouling is above water.
Yeah.
When they come. So if you only clean underwater, you're just cleaning half of your face. And what we are delivering is we're cleaning the full face. So imagine, when you go facial, you only clean half. We clean the whole thing. And this is the third difference. And I think to a lot of clients, it's like, if you come to us, we complete the operation. While if you go to the others, they're not completing. They're doing like 50%.
Reminding us of the time whereby we wear masks to work and you just do makeup for the first half of your face. But for our audience, when we talk about currents, 3 knots is about, correct me if I'm wrong, Elizabeth, 5.55 kilometers per hour. So that's what we are looking at. But let's take a look at your customer base, Elizabeth. Neptune Robotics said it is endorsed by some of the world's largest liners, ship owners and operators. You have a coverage of over 55% of international merchants' vessel stops, including in Singapore. So who are your customers? Any names that you can share, and how would you segment them?
So we have accumulated a lot of clients, luckily, in the past few years, and they include usually the biggest in their own country. So we have the biggest Greek ship owner. We have the biggest shipping company in Norway, biggest shipping company in China, biggest shipping company in Japan. Although I cannot mention the names,
we get the hint. We get the hint.
Yeah, so we have the biggest, company in Denmark, etc., as our key client, and really it's because of them that we're here. Because in the past 2 years, in operations in China, half of the vessels that we service in China had a port call in Singapore before China, because this is like the most important maritime port. Yes. And our client said, if you could have, serviced my vessel, 3 days earlier, that would be great. And I was in Singapore. My vessel is, I'm departing from China. And I cannot delay, the timeline, but I will be in Singapore in 3 days. Can you service, my vessel there? So we've seen a lot of questions and requests for Singapore operations. And that's why earlier this year, actually starting from June this year, we started thinking about Singapore. And as we're quite quick, we call it, Shenzhen speed. So like lightning speed, we started this plan in around June, and we have landed in Singapore, launched services in November in 2024.
Elizabeth, you actually brought me to my next question. How do you actually segment your customers, right? What is the average deal size we're looking at? Which is the most important consumer group ultimately when it boils down to the dollars and cents?
We segment our clients into vessel types, so containers, bulk carriers, tankers, gas carriers. And the deal size has a huge range. It depends on what we're doing and what is the size of the vessel. So the range is from a couple $1,000 US to $40-50K US dollars, because we have a huge range and the surface area of hull it can be 10 times of a small vessel and a large vessel.
Your most important consumer group still the large vessels?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the largest merchant vessels.
Let's take a look at the geographical markets that you are in, Elizabeth, because the firm was founded in 2018. Commercial operations began in 2020, and you talked about Shenzhen speed. So from 2020 until now, 2025, the firm now operates in 60 ports along China's coastline. Is said to have 30 robots across 5 operation centers. Take us through your global footprint right now. Which is the most important geographical market for you, and why the focus in China to begin with?
So for us, the most important thing right now is Singapore. And that's why we're here today. Singapore is the second largest port after Shanghai. So second, and it's been key to every single client that we have. Globally, so the reason why we started in China is before us, the global shipping companies always thought it's impossible to do underwater operations in China because in Shanghai, Ningbo, world's biggest and third biggest port, you have murky waters. So murky waters because of the sand from the Changjiang, the river.
Yeah.
And because of this murky water, it's been impossible in the past 5,000 years. The age of China,
Yes.
It's been impossible to conduct any underwater operations until our robots. And until now, when we reach out to new clients, they would even say, "You must be kidding me! It's not possible to do any operation in murky waters." And
Because of the visibility.
Yes, the visibility is basically zero, near zero visibility, and that's why we thought, okay, this is a huge problem that we can solve with robots. And because we can solve it, so we started in China because this is a huge market that can be solved by robots, and there is no existing solution.
Okay. So now it's all about Singapore, where your clients are looking to get your services. Now, we love talking about money on Money FM, as you can imagine, Elizabeth. Financially, how far is Neptune Robotics a profitable business at this point in time? And do you have any revenue or profitability targets in the near term? How far are you away from achieving those targets?
We have a very thin margin now, but it's a positive net margin.
Okay.
So we have, because it's the capital market is not as good as 5 years ago. So really, every company, it's responsible for us to be break even, and we've reached that level. Our revenue is in the range of, this is the first time we've mentioned this.
Okay.
It's in 8 figures range in US dollars. And of course, the goal is to be a nine figures revenue annually. And for us, Singapore is the most important because we treat Singapore as our global headquarters.
Okay.
So not from, we're not just
not
a subsidiary.
APAC headquarters, global headquarters.
Yes, global headquarters, because this is the hub that has, the most dense maritime talent, and you have the top universities. So this is the international headquarters that we're building in Singapore this year.
Okay, so now we're at break-even point, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the firm reportedly received $17.25 million in Series A investments in 2022 and is currently backed by Sequoia China, which is that VC giant behind your Apple, WhatsApp, and Shein. Question for you, Elizabeth. How have you used that $17.25 million USD some 2 years down the road or 3 years down the road? What is the total amount of capital injection into your company at this point in time? What's the cash burn rate?
We've spent every drop of investment from Sequoia into R&D,
Okay.
And that's why we have 30 plus robots, and that's why our robots achieve so many features that the existing solution
How big are the
doesn't have.
robots?
It's around 800 kg.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
quite. So that's why we cannot bring it here today.
That's why $17.25 million.
Yes, that's why. Yes, and it's so the huge the $17.25 million in Series A has been spent on the robots and advancing the technology and increasing the stability because we operate in 60 ports. It's very important for us to. So one day in Dalian, it's minus 20 degrees. And then in Shoko, it's 35. So, and we have, there's vibration, high, low, temperature, etc. We operate in so many ports with different weather conditions, different water visibility that our robots have to be very, very robust. And that's what we've spent money on. And historically, we've raised 20 plus million US.
Okay. If you're just tuning in, we're in conversation with Elizabeth Chan, co-founder and CEO of Neptune Robotics. Well, Elizabeth, you've talked about Singapore many times, and let's talk about your expansion into Singapore right now. Neptune Robotics had in November 2024 expanded to Singapore, and that brings its service coverage to over 55% of international merchants' vessels stops. Now, the expansion in Singapore would also allow you to support ship owners and operators along China-Singapore shipping routes. So I believe at this point you have a fleet of 6 robots here. The aim is to clean about 800 vessels over the next 12 months. Now, if we take a few steps back, what's the rationale behind expanding in Singapore? How far has that got to do with your synergies with your existing business in China?
Why this number of robots in Singapore? Because really 6 robots is a minimum. So it's a starting point. And 800 vessels in a year is also the starting point.
Okay.
When you look at Singapore as a market, it is the second biggest port, and it has a lot of vessels that do not have to call and discharge in Singapore, but Singapore is the key bunkering port.
Yeah.
So it's like every vessel passes by Singapore in Asia. And China is usually the destination or the starting point. So what we're doing here is before Singapore, we're usually at the starting point or at the final point. We want to be in the middle as well. And that's why a lot of our existing clients in China requested us to be in Singapore. And those clients are the biggest players in the, ocean transportation. And we listen to, their feedback and we come. The next few steps of Neptune Robotics is also to listen to where our clients need us to be, and we'll be there.
So what do you intend to do right here in Singapore, and how big of a profit driver would Singapore then be to the firm against the bigger portfolio that you have?
Our target is grow Singapore into about 20% of our portfolio of our coverage. Although it's not 20% of our port coverage, but in terms of importance, it's definitely way above any normal city.
Okay, now let's set our sights on the longer term, Elizabeth. If we look at Business Research Insights, it valued the global hull cleaning robot market size at $48 million in 2023. That figure is expected to reach $463.6 million by 2030. Either way, we are looking at a CAGR of 42% over here, which is very high. How aligned are you with the numbers? What will be the key drivers of growth for the industry and for Neptune Robotics as the maritime sector sort of seek to address the issue of biofouling to push ahead with the decarbonization agenda as well?
So I think the figure that you shared is definitely a bit below our estimate.
Okay.
Especially, so the market is growing very fast, but right now it's already quite big.
Okay.
If not, we won't be, having our revenue figures.
Yes.
And in terms of, annually growing for 40%, we agree. And in fact, it could be more because our own operation numbers year by year is we actually achieve 4 times operations compared to 2023. And we think the reason behind is, it's like TikTok. Time is running out for the maritime industry. We have huge targets. We want to be, net zero in 2050, and we're quite far away from this figure. And what our clients are doing now is they're using every way possible to reduce emissions, and we're one of the most economical way. So it's like the ROI is higher than a lot of other options. That's
what are the other options that they have considered?
So they could upgrade the engine into a more efficient one. They can use different types of hull paint coating to reduce the resistance. So there are a lot of solutions, and I think the end game of this is a combination of effective solutions. So not one solution can achieve net zero.
Okay, so you're saying that the market, even though the size of the market right now is bigger, the CAGR that we're looking at going forward might be a multiple instead of 42%.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, beyond Singapore, Elizabeth, I understand you're setting your sights on the Middle East and South America as well. What are the reasons behind expanding in these markets? What opportunities do you see in them?
We mentioned the 2 regions, and there are only 2 of the regions in our plan. We're going to go to more than that. We're also going to Europe and America. The reason why we would like to be in those locations is because our clients would like us to be there, because there is no existing efficient solutions. There is no advanced technology, usually the water is murky, so you need a robot that can see in murky waters, or usually the current is very strong. So that's why, the reason why we want to be in, for example, South America is they have very similar waters than in Shanghai. And that's why you have to bring a solution that works in Shanghai into a similar waters, and that's why there are a lot of problems that human beings cannot solve, because we have a physical body and it's impossible for us to see in these waters, and we should bring the robots there and to surface the fleet in that region.
But the biggest markets, the more lucrative markets that you want to expand into, is it still, South America and Middle East?
South America, Middle East, and in Europe as well.
Europe, okay. Is there a target size as to how big you want to build the firm, Neptune Robotics? What is the likely exit strategy for early investors at Neptune Robotics? Any future funding plans in sight? Because I know prior to Neptune Robotics, you were in Hong Kong Exchange.
Yes.
Looking at IPO filings.
Yes. So, of course, IPO is one of the options for our early investors. I don't think any of our early investors want an exit now.
Yeah.
They want the returns. and the goal, how big to, as Neptune Robotics, as mentioned, we would like to grow the revenue figures into 9 figures, and we would like to be in regions, in ports that do not have an existing good solution.
Okay.
So really our goal is to reach a 100 port coverage in around 2 years.
Wow.
And so because we did this, usually it takes 1 to 2 years to expand from the first port to the second port, right?
Yeah.
But from the second port to the 18th port, it took us 1 year, and from 18th port to the 15th, the third year. So usually the port coverage is like you grow quicker and quicker.
Now we're at 55%, about 60 ports, if I'm not wrong. So if you talk about 100, are we looking at then around 120 ports? And if so, what is your cash burn rate going to be like? How do you fund that kind of CapEx? Are you going to get more funding soon?
Because we've already achieved break-even, although with a very thin margin. We might consider future funding if the partner is something that is strategic. But we're not in any burning need of capital right now.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Keep us excited. What are some future plans for Neptune Robotics, and what can we look forward to this year, both be it in Singapore or in other parts of Asia?
So for audiences in Singapore, really we would like to welcome you to join Neptune Robotics. We are looking into tapping into the talent both in tech and in in maritime industry in Singapore, and very, very excited to be building up the team. Today, we have a team of 12 in Singapore. We are looking at least 3 to 4 times in the next 16 months. And we would like to build this as not just an operation center, but also in the R&D, also in building new products, including new robots, new software. So we will be here in Singapore, and please join us if you want to work on decarbonization. If you want to deliver huge savings for huge companies, please join us.
Well, I suppose lots to watch out of Neptune Robotics this year. Thanks a lot for joining us, Elizabeth. That was Elizabeth Chan, co-founder and CEO of Neptune Robotics.
Thank you very much.
Before acting on the information on Money FM, please consider if it's suitable for your own investment objectives, financial situation, and risk tolerance. To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.